Hey, how are you, Coach?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you tonight?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure, actually. I'm looking to get some very vital information through some of these, Zoom meetings with you and try to install them through Caden.
All right. Well, I look forward to a discussion. We had a really good kind of round robin discussion last week with three dads and me, just talking about how we're calibrating competition. And one of their suggestions, I kind of asked them for, what topics they would like. And they suggested, what's the most effective recipe that I've found for training, for development. And so kind of like to bounce questions off the parents that are on and get some feedback as we're going through different topics. But why don't we start by introducing ourselves a little bit? I think both you guys are familiar with me enough to come on the call, so I'll keep mine short and sweet. I've been coaching for 17 years and bounced around a lot of different teams internationally and in the States, and always come back to player development. And kind of the 10 to 14-year-old age group is really the niche where I found the most success and the most rewarding. So that's why I started the play practice business 4 years ago, and why we're taking on a facility this year and trying to ramp things up to reach more kids and do more of what I love and what I do best. So Leigh-Anne, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I have a daughter, Jillian. She's been playing since she was about 5. She started in a skills program, and she's 13 now, and plays for a school team and a travel team. And we're looking at an AAU team currently, and just looking to kind of develop her skills and just her confidence, and just kind of tweak her techniques and stuff a little bit.
Perfect. Oh, that's great. And what's your experience been with basketball? Have you ever done any coaching yourself? Were you a player, or what's your background?
God, no. I am like the most unathletic person, and almost did not graduate high school because of my athletic ability and physical requirements. So I don't know where Jillian came from. So
well, that's cool.
We enjoy watching her play, and I've learned a lot about basketball watching her play, but definitely looking to help her improve more and finding the right people that can help her, because it's not me.
That's good. It's good to know your limitations and seek help.
I
do that in a lot of areas of my life. And the older I get, the wiser I get. I think the more I tend toward that. Instead of fighting it, doing it myself really badly in a long time, I'm going to find somebody that can do it faster and usually cheaper. So that's great. How about Michael? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Mike O'Connor, and I have a boy, Caden O'Connor, and he's been to BJ's clinic. He is 8 years old. I brought him there actually first with Coach Kelly to do an evaluation on him, and he did have enough minor skills that he did get accepted from you guys. Usually you kind of keep it 1 year, 10 years old. But I'm very grateful that you accepted him into there. And we've been working on the skills that you have showed us. And one of the things that I'm really starting to focus on is confidence. It seems to be one of the most important things. And that's one of the most important things that, from your school and what you put out is we're trying to build confidence for these kids. And so that's where I'm at this time. I'm not over pushing him. I'm taking in some of the skills and implementing them. I'm not overworking them at this time, but we're just trying to learn skill sets and not take in bad habits.
Right. And what's your background been with basketball, Michael? Were you a player at all? Did you?
I was a Boston Celtics fan.
There we go. That counts for something. At least in their prime, it counts for a lot. Yeah, and then you've started doing a little bit of coaching, I guess, with Caden. Kind of taking what you've been learning from a lot of different sources. It sounds like.
Yes, well, I try not to be a coach because I'm not a coach. Yeah. And I know when I came to see you guys, I was very clear that I want to start from the beginning, and I need to get the knowledge too, because I do not want to teach in bad habits from the beginning. They're very hard to get rid of.
Right. That's a good point. Well, that's great. It's good to know where you guys are coming from as we go through our discussion here. So the topic I picked for tonight, based on what parents last week were asking me about, was what is the best recipe for player development? We can kind of take this on a lot of different facets, but I'd like to start by actually asking you guys that question. And based on what you've gone through with your players so far, like what has worked for you and maybe what's not worked in some ways. So, Michael, you want to go first? I know you've been bouncing around a lot of different sources, like we were just talking about. What's the best recipe you found? Combining these, all the pieces, all the options that are out there.
So I'm limited the options. I'm not trying to give him too much to focus and take all in at once. I'm more backing it up and taking baby steps. One of the things that I had learned from one of my family members who played AAU high school basketball, so they do have some skills. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that have worked for me is we practice for about 5 minutes every night with a basketball dribbling in one hand, and I throw him a tennis ball to the other. And I have gotten Caden to focus looking up from that skill.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good one. A lot of people tend toward that kind of reaction drill stuff with dribbling. I guess I'm always in the mode of trying to get things game applicable as fast as possible. So I usually skip over that stuff. Like, yeah, you can go do that on your own. You can kind of see it and figure out what needs to be done. And then, like you said, go do it every night for 5 minutes. You're going to make most of the progress you need. So saves me from having to coach that part, I guess. So I usually leave that for the players, but it's a good tool to have in the bag. And then tell me a little bit about the shooting clinic you were telling me about and the other programs that you've been involved in.
Yep. So we've been going to the shooting clinic over the sports barn in Hampton, and it's just a shooting only clinic. And so he is just learning shooting techniques at that clinic. At the time, he's not learning ball handling and dribbling. So he's focusing very well on his shooting techniques.
Perfect. Yeah. I like the single focus courses. We're actually the course that Caden's actually doing. We're looking at rolling into a group class going into March, because we kind of learned, that everybody's doing the kind of skills and drills approach where, parents send their kid, the kid shows up and, does something for an hour. We don't really know what. It's a little bit of everything, and we hope for some progress out of it. And, I'm much more a fan and an advocate of, we're here for shooting, or we're here for footwork, or we're here for ball handling. And, you can make a lot better progress. And I think for our parents, it's a lot easier to sign up for something where it's like, we're doing this with this expected outcome. And so, yes, I want to go for that versus, yeah, I'm going to bring them by every week for a year and, hope they get something out of it. It's a lot harder to commit to in a lot of ways. So how about Leigh-Anne? What's been working for you with Jillian? She's played a lot of basketball from what you've told me. And
she has, but
yeah.
I do she hasn't really done any of that kind of approach where it's just been working on one skill set. And I think that would probably benefit her a little bit, working on footwork or shooting, or she's had a little bit of it during COVID. There was a local college student that was home remotely and took on some kids and worked one-on-one with them. And I think she really got a lot out of that.
Yeah.
Because he was able to really focus on some of the things that, she really needed to work on as far as her shooting skills or, just form and things like that. So that was really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think one thing that's helped her too is just being involved in a couple different teams and just being, sometimes I think she's gotten comfortable being with the same group of kids sometimes. And I think sometimes it has helped her to kind of, it definitely is outside her comfort zone to work with other kids or different groups of people. But I think, it has actually helped her technique and her skill level as well
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
No, that's great. I think that's a big one for sure. So I think we're already arriving at the first part of the recipe for me, which is the single focus and then the single player focus, right? That's really been one huge piece of my best recipe for developing players is, we're taking a single player that, doesn't have the coach in a big group pressure from the coach, but they also don't even have the peer pressure, which, with our age group, like the 10 to 14-year-olds, that's a huge piece. Like, I don't want to go dribble off my foot in practice, so I'm not going to try dribbling at all, right? I'm just going to pass somebody else. In games is one thing, but even in practice, you have that peer pressure of just, my friend snickering in the corner because I airballed my shot, so I'm not going to shoot any more tonight. And, that's a huge, huge factor. So, having the single focus of a skill, like we just talked about, so that we have, something very certain as an outcome we're trying to work toward. We're trying to increase our number of made shots, whatever we want to take as a metric for that. It's very easy to say, we went from making 1 out of 10 free throws to now making 8 out of 10 free throws. 6 months later, we made some progress, right? And then again, the single player, giving them kind of the private failure, public success. It's the best way I've found to describe it. You're gonna fail in private, work out the kinks, make all your mistakes. Get 100 reps under your belt where you did it perfectly with a coach saying yes to it, and then you're able to, okay, I've got that much confidence, I can go try this in practice in front of my friends because I know what I'm doing, right? And then maybe if I make a mistake, it doesn't matter that much because I do know what I'm doing, even if the outcome's not what I want, right? And it kind of allows them to get that kickstart because, again, kind of the anxiety or the fear of the peers' negative viewpoint of yourself is a big negative motivation, I guess. And then I really like what you said, Leigh-Anne, about another part of the recipe is really experiencing a wide variety of different teams. I think there's a really big tendency in New Hampshire, especially to, really fall into the small pond syndrome. It's like, I'm in my town of Epsom. So, I played 3rd grade with the Epsom girls. So I played 5th grade with the Epsom girls. So I played 7th, 8th grade school with the same Epsom girls. And then we get to high school and, actually, I am not that good a player and I haven't experienced any other types of players or types of coaches or anything else. And, my career is done at that point because I don't know how to, I don't know how to go from, the town of Epsom to, whatever. I don't know. What is the high school that you guys go to from Epsom?
Pembroke Academy.
Pembroke Academy, right. So if I go to Pembroke, it's a huge school, a huge program, and I'm
Right.
probably way behind if I haven't had any other experiences.
Right.
And so, I like to think about it, that the analogy for me, a real technical aspect is, if you practice free throws a foot closer to the basket and a foot farther from the basket, your body calibrates better. When you're at the free throw line, you have a more accurate sense of where you are and you're more accurate. And, if you practice with some higher level teams and some different players and some lower level teams, different players, you calibrate to where you're at, right? You kind of have a better sense of yourself. And you've experienced different coaching styles and different styles of offense. And, all that stuff starts to amalgamate in the player's mind to where, okay, I actually know where these pieces fit. And, when I show up to a tryout, I can pretty quickly tell, that coach doesn't know what he's talking about. That coach is doing something we did back in 3rd grade that, I experienced and didn't really work at all. Like, I'm going to try out a different team because, this is not working for me already.
Right.
So, yeah. What do you guys think about that? Just the concept of the spectrum of experience, I guess. Let's go Michael first.
So obviously I haven't had too much experience in game playing since Caden just, started up this year.
Yeah.
I do take him to go watch some AAU games. Children a teeny bit older than him, and to see where are we at in our program, which this is what I call I have a program for my son, and we're going to achieve goals one step at a time. We're not going to be in the NBA tomorrow. We're going to achieve goals We're going to write a poster and we're going to take steps. And he's starting now, and then maybe we'll get to a little better clinic, and then maybe we'll get to some better 3-on-3s. And then maybe at that time when we feel comfortable, maybe it's time for AAU. But I'm not going to just throw him to the wolves at this time until I feel comfortable and confident that he's at least going to be able to compete. He doesn't need to be a superstar. Just compete and have fun and play.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great approach to that. I think certainly before 5th grade, it's really not necessary to play an AAU team. You can do a lot better stuff for them in the younger age group by, playing in a 3-on-3 league, like you said, or, doing some individual training, figuring out the pieces that are going to make them have a lot better time when they go play 5-on-5 in that kind of competition. So that's great. So another part that I've really found to be effective with the, talking about the best recipe for development is to have both, so we've had players, really before 2020, I guess it was 2021. It seems like longer than that ago now, but 2021, January 21 is when we launched the Confidence Formula program that actually Jillian's just about to start with us. And, really pivoted toward kind of the educational approach with, a much bigger focus on the results and the outcome that we're going to get. Before that, we had clients that would just kind of come to us on an ongoing basis, kind of like I was talking about the skills and drills. They would come and like, we're going to do an hour every week and, kind of just hope for the best. And we had players that would, do that for a year or more really consistently, but we'd still find at the end of that, they had some holes in their knowledge because we were taking, kind of pulling out of a hat, on this week, we're going to work on this skill. And, maybe they had a bad game and they talked to us about a situation. So we worked on that and we kind of built this patchwork of all these pieces. But when we really started to look at, what they knew and what was missing, there were big holes in their knowledge. And so, we tried to account for that by saying, what are the biggest things we want them to know? And now can we pack that into 12 weeks and say, this is the progression we want to follow so that you have certainty in all those. And so, all that to say, if we have only one-on-one training going on, we're really missing a big part of the game of basketball, right? So we could have, we have the kids, there's a lot of kids in the bracket of playing 100 games a year on 4 different teams, year round. And they're just going and going, and they're hoping that playing more games is going to develop them and get them better, right? Because, they're playing on an elite team or they're playing in this tournament or whatever it is. That's kind of the carrot that's out there for parents is like, you play on this team, you play more games, and eventually you're a college player. It's like there's a joke of physics formula on the chalkboard that's a joke and says, here's the formula, and in this box, here's where the magic happens, and then the formula equals something specific at the end. And the AAU and just playing more games as a concept is kind of that magic box. We hope that magic happens somewhere in there and the player comes out the other end and is suddenly a college level talent. But, the other end of the spectrum, what I was saying is the one-on-one training can be equally as bad. Like we could do one-on-one with a coach and no defense and get really good as a practice player, but we're never going to translate that to a game to actually have improved game performance, right? So both of those separately don't work. Right. And even together, where most players do end up, if they're progressing and becoming a good player, they're going to have some 5-on-5 play and they're going to have some one-on-one instruction. But the middle part is really where we can have the most impact. And so that's really where I've set out to make my mission is how do we connect the dots between those two? And for me, 3-on-3 is really one of the best tools for that. Kids play 3-on-3. It's usually less structured, so the coach is not scripting everything they're having to do. They're having to make more decisions and they're touching the ball more and they're playing a little bit faster. And, it's a little more focused in a half court setting. They don't have to have the up and down, and it's not as easy for the best athlete on the floor to dominate as it is in a full court where, especially Caden's age group, you've probably seen, Michael, where, the biggest, fastest kid gets the ball and he just outruns everybody and it's 1 against 9. His teammates are in his way more often than not. And, nobody else is getting much out of it. And so, the half court 3-on-3 game really forces them to have to use their team and force them to develop a lot of the skills that we want them to see. But what I really try to encourage people as they go along with us, some players are at such a beginner level that they don't need to be playing really yet. We want to get some skill pieces in place and get them to where they can move their feet and handle the ball, and they actually know how to play as at least their body movement type thing. And then we can get them into 3-on-3 and eventually into 5-on-5. But if we go back to the best recipe for me is really why I call the business play practice, is that we should play first. Because if we've got a beginner and they have no idea what basketball even looks like, telling them a whole bunch of pieces of a skill is just going to really bore them to death. They're not going to have a very fun time in practice. If I'm just going, let's zero in on this footwork right now, and they have no idea where it fits in the game of basketball, it's like, this is a terrible practice. Like, I don't have any fun with this. And so I like to get them playing 3-on-3, as messy as it is. Like, they've never dribbled a ball, they're dribbling off their foot, or they're just carrying it rugby style, but they're attacking the basket and they're moving in a way that looks like basketball. Then we can start to fit the pieces of the skill into that. And so I like to say we should make a practice sandwich. We should play, and then we should practice and break down the pieces that we need for that play. And then we should go back to playing with it so that we have that direct application afterwards. And the start is always, here's the big picture of a basketball situation. And now here's the tools that you need to really use in that situation to make it work. And then, one of the most rewarding things about the coaching that I do with that is that I'm constantly handing players, here's a solution, right? It's not, do it my way or run laps, right? It's like, here's the problem situation we just created in this game. And now if you do it this way, you solve the problem we just had. And then they go back to playing like, oh, here's the solution, plug it into the problem, and we're off and running and having a lot more fun playing basketball. So I guess to wrap up this big concept that I'm talking about of the best recipe for development is really to have the individual training and the team training going on at the same time, and then making sure they have some time where they're bridging that gap between 1-on-1 and 5-on-5. They're either playing 3-on-3 or they're doing some group training where the focus is not on the scripted 5-on-5 offense. It's on those pieces that, principles really that are going to allow 2 and 3 players to interact in a game so that they're not running into each other and, they're not out of sync and losing the ball because they thought the other one was doing something else, right? Really coordinating brains. I had a good mentor of mine that I still talk to often named Noah Roach. He coaches really high level NBA and college guys out in LA for the most part. And he calls it the hive mind. If we get our core principles down so that all the players are running the same operating system like software, then it's like the hive mind of a beehive. Everybody knows where everybody else is and what they're supposed to be doing, and we start to have kind of incredible synchronicity out of that. And that's what pattern offense is supposed to produce. That's the kind of the high ideal for like a high school coach. I'm going to run this 50 page playbook and get my players to memorize all these patterns. The goal is to get them all synchronized in a hive mind kind of way. But the problem is that nobody can memorize 50 patterns and do them under the stress and the chaos of the game. And so we end up with, just pattern memorization, especially girls. Like you've probably seen, Leigh-Anne, with some teams that Jillian's on, like girls are really good at, okay, this is what coach wants to do. This is the pattern we're following. Yeah. And like, even if I have a wide open layup in front of me, the next step of the play says I'm supposed to pass to this girl. So I'm going to do that pass regardless. Yeah. Right. And that's the most frustrating thing for coaches. They're like, oh, you just had a layup and you did the pass and you were supposed to do it. And it's, they're running pattern memorization. All our practice time is spent on, do the play. It's 5 players and no defense. So there's no reaction and no decisions going on.
Right.
And, then we get to the game, we run the pattern. And, the biggest problem is like like to equate it to guerrilla warfare, where, you can have the best military in the world and all the equipment, but the guerrillas are in the jungle hiding and they're just throwing a Coke can at you and blowing up your best tank. And the defense, the offense is spending months practicing and memorizing all these 50 pattern plays. And then the defense looks at it and sees it in 2 seconds, like, oh, they're running this pattern. They just did this 2 plays ago. This is the same pattern. And now I'm going to go steal this pass because everybody's running a scripted play that I can anticipate. Right. So the amount of time and effort is so big of a differential between what it takes to master a play to make it effective and what it takes for the defense to break it down is just, astronomically on the side of the defense. And so what I try to get everybody moving toward is what I call principled offense, where we have kind of the universal rules of basketball that the players all know and understand to the point, no matter what the defense does, we have a counter move to that. And we're constantly making decisions and reacting based on this framework of rules and then improvising based on what we see the defense do. And if we get the context built for what a game looks like, and we get the individual skills built inside of that, and then we get those team concept principles built so that all the players are reacting to each other and to the defense consistently and reliably, then our efficiency as an offensive team can just go off the charts because we know what my teammates going to be doing and where they're going to be before the defense does, and my teammates know based on what the defense does how I'm going to react and what they should do accordingly. And I guess as you can hear, it's just kind of the most exciting thing in the world to me when I get players kind of over that hump where they're really using the skills individually that they know how to use, and they're reacting and playing with those principles. It's just the best way to have beautiful basketball. And kind of becomes impossible to defend, right? It becomes to the point where you got to really have a improvisational style defense even to keep up, because most patterns run by high school teams especially are very easily predicted by the defense, and so defenses get used to that. And when you get a really high level improvisational offense, the defense is usually overrun unless they've practiced, against their own team like that and gotten really used to it. So that's a really big topic. I kind of put a lot of pieces into there. So what questions do you guys have?
Oh God.
I saw Michael sitting back there. I see the gears turning in your mind. I know you already read my book that has a bunch of this stuff in it, but what comes to mind for you?
I love the concept as you're talking about not having these scripted plays and learning hard. I did play hockey. That's a 5-on-5 sport.
Yeah.
And similar to basketball in the manner of speaking. And we would have these scripted plays, and that's what would happen until our coach would allow us to start using our own individual talents and becoming to work to our talents instead of a coach's pattern, like you said. So I do understand what you're saying there.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part that most coaches miss. They kind of stay and let's just run the pattern play harder. Let's practice it more, right? And it's really it's when I like to call it empower the players, right? The brain, the hive mind should be on the court and not on the sideline. If I try to control the game and have players looking toward me for every set play to be called, then we're not going to have our best foot forward when we're attacking. So having the hive mind and empowering the players to make those in-game decisions to, like you said, Michael, use their best talent is really the best thing we can do for them. So I like to think about as kind of creating the framework, and then the players fill in the pieces inside of that framework. So I'm not scripting every single part. I'm just giving them the rules and kind of the overview, the honeycomb of the beehive, and let them fill the honey in the best way they can. And players are usually pretty good at that. When they get that sense of freedom and they get that sense of trust from the coach, and we're really running practice in a way that is conducive to that, then players usually have a great time. And we see some of the better teams in the world come out of that kind of approach. So what comes to mind for you, Leigh-Anne?
No, I think that concept makes so much sense. I mean, I definitely see that in Jillian's play. She has on the 2 teams that she's on right now, one of the coaches coaching both teams, and he's a head coach on one, assistant coach on the other team. So I think a lot of the plays and stuff, I see exactly what you're talking about. And just watching Jillian do that, there was, for instance, a game where she had the ball and she was wide open to take that ball down to the other end, but instead she just threw it into this group of piranhas because that's what she thought she was supposed to do. She's supposed to be at the other end at the basket, and where she had a clear open shot, she could have taken it all the way down and sunk it in, and instead, and I said, why did you do that? And she's like, well, because that's not my job to do that. The coach wants me to pass it to so and so, because I'm supposed to be here. And so to me, I mean, like I said, I know nothing about basketball or coaching for that matter, but to me that didn't make sense. If she was clear open and everybody was around who they thought was going to get the ball, which is what happened. She could have taken it down. Nobody really anticipated that would have happened. So so that concept does make sense.
Taking advantage of opportunities, having players that are looking for opportunities where they can go attack and score is really where we want to get to. And I think the whole idea of positional, basketball, where you're pigeonholing players to, you're a 5, so fives never dribble. You just get the ball to the player that's the 1, and they do dribble. And like I said, with the defense, the guerrilla warfare defense says, okay, we got this figured out. They're going to throw it to this player, so let's surround her like piranhas and we'll steal it. Right? It works pretty good. So, the counterpoint to that, what I try to push and, get players and parents and coaches thinking about is what we call positionless basketball, where it's like everybody's a threat to score and everybody can dribble and everybody can attack. And, so if you're, Jillian's tall, so she's probably always kind of pigeonholed to that center position near the basket and don't dribble, right? But if you ever see a team with a tall player that can rebound and dribble, like, it's the best offense ever, because the longest legged, fastest running player has the ball in her hands, and without any need for anybody else to give her input or instruction, she can go. And the rest of the team can now keep up with that pace, and we are the fastest team on the floor. And I don't know how coaches miss that. I guess it's a long-term or short-term outcome kind of thing. If you have an unskilled big player, which is common, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they're got all this height and none of the nerves to actually coordinate the muscles that move things to make it work, right? And so they're awkward and dribble off their foot all the time, and they haven't had much practice because they're tall. They want to be the coaches want them near the basket, right? So it's kind of a compounding effect. The shorter players are seen as guards, so they get the ball in their hands more, and so they get more practice and they get better ball hands. So if we take the positionless approach, I want to get the 5th grader that's tall to start getting comfortable dribbling, so that by 7th, 8th grade, like, they are a powerhouse with the ball in their hands. Anywhere they get it, they're able to go attack, and even get them to be comfortable making decisions with the ball in their hands, which is kind of a whole nother conversation. But getting everybody really the skills of a guard to start out with is the best approach we can have. Everybody, up until about age 14, your height is very undetermined. So treat everybody like a guard. And then if you're 7 feet after you're 14, we can work on some post play skills and start to build that side of your game. But until you're 7 feet tall, like, you should be a guard. There's even guys in the NBA that are 7 feet and still play a guard position. So, like, having that skill set first, so you can handle the ball and shoot and make decisions and make passes, it's really our best recipe, again, as we're talking about for development, is make it positionless. Like, we don't know what you're going to end up height wise. So let's learn all the skills that we're going to need as a basketball player, so that we are always a threat to score. And we always have, the ability to take an opportunity to go attack, whenever the chance arises. So again, very passionate about that idea. Not scripting players into a certain position and kind of making them stuck there. I see a lot of tall kids in 7th, 8th grade that have come out of that and have a lot of work to overcome that and get comfortable with the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because I feel like Jillian at one point was good at dribbling and stuff, and she wasn't afraid to take the ball down the court.
Yeah.
But then once they started playing positions, then I feel like she lost some of that. So So I definitely see that where you're coming
Yeah.
from.
I think that's a big problem out there. Cool. All right, so we're about ready to wrap up. What other questions do you have for me? This is fun.
Oh, my dog's barking.
What kind
Sorry
of dog
about
do you
that.
have?
What's that?
What kind of dog do you have?
A crazy one. A loud one.
Special crazy
He's a
loud
baby.
breed.
He's
Okay.
a lab and spaniel mix.
So any questions from you guys before we sign off here?
Yes, I do.
No, I don't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were just discussing about, and we were discussing about her daughter and how her play has changed because she's now on a much more strict coaching team, and it has affected her skills. I'm quite an abrupt father, as you know. I come there and I go with Kate in everything he does, and I like to learn and I like to be able to participate, and I like to be able to back up the knowledge of what I'm saying is true. So how do we approach a coach that we feel is not helping our child?
That's a big one. I'm going to write that down. How do we approach a coach that we feel is not helping our child?
We are in the youth stages, and we are still in the learning stages at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We are still in the learning stages. And, you know, as a parent, for me, I want the best training that my son can do. It's not about wins and losses for me at this time. It's about the training. It's about progression. And if he wants to play the game, and I know I've been around coaches my whole life and different things, and you know, it's very difficult to approach a coach when they come up with well, it's because your child's not getting the time, or it's because your child's getting more time. And so I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts on that. Like, how would we approach a coach and say, our child's been training with very good training people, very good facilities, and they're not being able to play to their ability right now, and I think we need to change this.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one. I think I've come back around to trying to meet coaches where they're at. I think in the last year or so, but for a long time I was just, I don't know, I kind of write off the average coach as just kind of an ego-driven person that it's so hard to crack into and change their mind on really anything. And a lot of the culture out there has become blaming the parents. If you hear coaches talk, or you hear popular cultures, like the parents are the problem. Like the parents advocating for their kids and asking coaches to do things differently for their kids. Like most people are talking about that as like the huge problem. And I'm like, why are the parents the problem if they're not getting their needs met? They're going to go somewhere else, or they're going to ask, they're going to first try to stay with the program they're in and ask for a change that's going to help their child, kind of like you're saying, but I guess the short answer, maybe not to answer your question, but the short answer to that problem to me is just like, feet talk. So, if you're not getting your needs met, go to a different program. There's 1,000 AAU programs and rec programs and travel programs out there. So like, you don't have to play school basketball even. It's kind of the highest ideal for a lot of people is to play for your school team. But, there's terrible school coaches out there that are kind of locked into the school bureaucratic system, and they're only coaches because they've been there a long time or they knew somebody, and, they're not serving your needs. It's really not that important to play for that team. Like, basketball is a fun game that's played all over the world in a lot of different ways. So I say walk away and find a better program. It's kind of the ultimate solution. But, as far as trying to, in some ways help a coach realize what they're doing is actually hurting the long-term progression. So I guess my first thought would be to try to just bring up the long game of development, because most coaches are so narrowly focused. Like, we got to win this season, we got to win this game. And so, Johnny can't dribble right now, so he's not going to play until he can dribble because I need to win this game. And if we can influence them toward a long-term approach, is like, Johnny's in 5th grade. In practice, when he has the ball in his hands, you must allow him to dribble. right? And it's every time. So he gets a rebound, somebody could pass it inbound it to him, he gets a steal, whatever. Instead of him handing it off to somebody in practice, he should have the ball in his hands and have that time to dribble. He might turn it over. They might have 10 steals in that practice scrimmage, but that doesn't matter. That fifth grade guy that's tall is going to end up with the ability to dribble the ball up the court, in 6 months to a year's time. And, I think you could kind of take that approach and make that case in just about anything they're doing. Is like, if they're not helping your child, it may be they don't have the skills and knowledge to, coach the technical skills or, what the player needs to connect the dots, which I think is very common. They're kind of focused again on winning, and they're focused on the high level strategy and tactics of what the team is going to be doing. And a lot of them don't really give much thought to, this player might run this pattern great, but his footwork is so bad that he's going to travel when he gets the ball in that pattern. And, they don't spend enough time just cleaning up footwork. Or, we run this play to the best player, but he can only make it some of the time. And so, our whole pattern offense is run with an unpredictable outcome because the shooter doesn't have a great skill set for shooting. There's a lot of different aspects of that. So I guess the answer to your question would be to try to bring their attention to the long game of what you're trying to do for your player as a development process, right? So, just pull them out, even for a few minutes, pull them out of the need to win, this next game, this season. Like, hey, for my player, I want them to be in a positionless environment where they could do anything they want, regardless of the position they're supposed to have. If they have an opportunity to attack, like, I want them empowered to do that. And, you can back that up with, the long game approach is they might want to be a college basketball player someday. And if they're not touching the ball and they're not allowed to dribble and they're not allowed to shoot right now, you're killing their chance to develop toward that dream.
So that actually was very good, because I backed my theory about that, because I heard a woman on the other side speaking about her daughter had the ball, but because of the coaching, and she didn't attack the rim. And, I'm one of those stern dads, and myself, I would be telling my son to attack the rim.
Yeah.
If he's that open. I'm sorry, coach, but I know it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to tell him something wrong to do, but, and sometimes as a parent, you got to step up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I've also found, with that mindset is like, if they're doing really good in games, like, the coach is not really going to stop them from doing that. Right. So if Jillian decided to go fast break and score a layup, like, the coach is not going to tell her not to do that. Right?
No, and I don't think that he would either. I think that was more her decision, what she thought was the expectation.
Yeah. But the other side of that is that coaches don't realize how much they're impeding that opportunity attack, right? By either complicating things or, giving them too specific of a position and a role. Because you said, it was a change from her being comfortable with the ball and doing a lot more.
Right.
To, oh, this is not my job, right? This is not my position, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give it to somebody else. And so, most coaches don't have that, I guess, unintended consequences in mind that, by giving everybody a very specific role, you're impeding them from taking opportunities to attack. That's anything outside the role. And, I think,
and part of that, I think, is the difference between boys and girls a little bit too. Like, she is one that likes to play by the rules, and she's given to play. Like, it's hard, I think, for her to kind of deviate from that, because she thinks that there is a set of expectations, and she wants to exceed that. But so she's given one role, and she kind of gets stuck, I think.
Absolutely. No, kind of like what you're talking about with the pattern plays. Girls are very much in that mode. Like, okay, coach has given us, a set pattern recipe that's, they think is the best way to get points. So we're going to run it to the best of our ability.
Right.
And, it's not my job. I'm going to pass it to the point guard, even if they're surrounded by piranhas, like you said.
Right.
Right. And yeah, I think boys have an easier time. It's just like, let's go. There's an opportunity. I got a ball. Like, I'm not giving it up. I'm going for it.
Exactly. It's funny watching the difference between the boys play and the girls play.
It is. Yeah.
It's very different.
Very interesting with that.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
What girls would watch play, right?
Say again?
I said, I guess that depends on which girls' teams that you get the chance to see play.
Right. There's some really good aggressive girls teams out there. I think a lot of it comes from who they're playing with, like we talked about. If they have a wider range of experience, their eyes are usually open to what's possible and what it really looks like to be a aggressive female player attacking like any guy would.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, and then again, just how much the coaching side affects that. The coach really has no idea that assigning them a role is going to stop them from doing something that could benefit the team, right? So we could probably calculate for them, how many points could Jillian be scoring with a fast break layup out of a rebound per season. It's probably something like 20 points. And,
right.
We divide that by 10 games and we lose a couple games by 2 points. Like, we're actually hurting ourselves by not allowing her to have the freedom to attack.
Yeah.
So, I guess everything comes back to me to just helping the player take their next step forward, right? Wherever they're at, we find out, even some of this kind of information is great. We're about to start working with Jillian. And so now we know, like, we need to work on when you got the ball, like, you are the attacker.
Take it.
And, like, go for it. Because, sometimes it just takes permission like that. I think, again, with girls especially, it's like, yes, like, go for it. You got the ball, like, go score. And it's like, oh, I can do that? All right. And then, like, the next game, she's gone. She's doing it. Right. It's sometimes all it takes. But meeting the player where they're at and, finding those buttons of leverage, like, give them the empowerment to go do what they can do best, because they've got a lot of skill, usually more than they're able to show in most games, sometimes because they're being impeded by, again, the peer pressure we talked about, the coaching complicating things, the coaching assigning roles, the the set patterns, like, all that stacks up to, like, I'm not going to do anything. And then we put the pressure of, you make a mistake, you get pulled out of the game right away on top of all that. Like, I don't even want to be here, right? I'm just going to hot potato this ball to somebody else that's going to make a mistake and get out of the game. I can keep playing and I kind of like it, even though I'm not doing anything because the pressure's too high. And, none of this is really working for me to be able to play basketball in the way that I'm capable of. So.
Absolutely.
Lots of good conversation tonight. I'm glad you guys made it on here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Myself like this, really passionately in the mirror or something. Here. So it's good to have a back and forth and kind of hear more about your guys' perspective and your experience so far.
Yeah. From your perspective.
Any final questions before we wrap up for the night?
I'll let you go.
All right. Cool.
I appreciate you meeting with us.
This kind of conversation, I've often not actually thought about doing a podcast just so I could have conversations like this and kind of hear, where parents are at, what's working, what's not, and, kind of build that database, because I think, parents with kids, maybe Caden's age or younger, are really looking at, you guys that have come through, like Jillian's now in 8th grade, they're looking to you as a parent, Leigh-Anne, what have you gone through and what has worked and what has not, and what would you have done better in the past? And so I think it's a great resource that we can give to people by just having conversations like this and pass them on as a recording.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, definitely helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great night, you guys.
Great. You too. Thanks so much.